Evidence is clear and overwhelming. Slavery was, by a wide margin, the single most important cause of the Civil War for both sides. Before the presidential election of 1860, a South Carolina newspaper warned that the issue before the country was the extinction of slavery and called on all who were not prepared to surrender the institution to act. Shortly after Abraham Lincoln's victory, they did. The secession documents of every Southern state made clear, crystal clear, that they were leaving the Union in order to protect their peculiar institution of slavery, a phrase that at the time meant the thing special to them.
What's going on, everyone? It's Talk to Kenny here today, and happy Independence Day, everyone. Happy 4th of July, however you want to say it. Today, now, it's controversial to celebrate, the founding of your country, the founding of the greatest country in the world, or one of the greatest countries in the world. I don't know. Like, it's so controversial now. You can't even be like, oh, I live in the best country in the world. Yes, America is still a work in progress, but isn't every country a work in progress? But hey, I digress. I'm a very realistic person. Okay, I realize that there's no perfect country, there's no perfect world. All you can ask for is a better trade-off. That's it. We all striving for a better country. And I did a video yesterday with Vivek, and I think that was really my, hey, this is why I believe America is great. But that's not the point of this video. As you saw from the intro, the point of this video is we're going to see, was Civil War about slavery? And I'm going to do something a little bit different. I'm going back to my roots, because a year ago, I remember I did a video with the same shirt on for Independence Day. And I wanted to kind of talk about like American history. Sorry, I already started sharing the screen. And I kind of want to give my thoughts about, was the Civil War really started about slavery? I believe it was, right? And I think as we go through the video, I'll give some of my insights that I will be borrowing from Dinesh's book, Death of a Nation. I think he makes a very solid argument for why Civil War was about slavery. But I want to see PragerU here and give you guys some visuals, so that way we can actually go through the video. So let's take a look and let's dive in.
Was the American Civil War fought because of slavery? More than 150 years later, this remains a controversial question. Why? Because many people don't want to believe that the citizens of the southern states were willing to fight and die to preserve a morally repugnant institution. There has to be another reason, we are told.
Before he continues, I wanted to give my thoughts on that. Is that for the longest time, if you've just been following me for a couple months, I have a series called The Inconvenient Truths. And I talk about how, especially in the Democratic one, which you guys seem to love a lot, I talk about how a lot of the North and slavery dichotomy is a way that liberal historians, progressive historians are using, like a tactic they're using, because they lie by omission. They don't tell you exactly the specifics. They try to, share the blame. They try to spread the blame around. Oh, America was racist. But if I ask you, which party or which group of people were the source of those racism, people gonna say white people. Okay, what white people? Because there was white people that died to free the slaves. There's 600,000 people that died during the Civil War. They were all white, majority white. So your argument saying, oh, it's all white people that was racist, it doesn't really make people's point, right? So I asked, okay, who's the source of slavery? I already know one party. I know a party. The Democratic Party was trying to preserve the institution of slavery. It wasn't just South; it was the Northern Democrats as well. Right? When the South decided to succeed from the nation, the South was waiting for, not Mississippi. What's Mississippi? Maryland, Kentucky, the border states of the Union. They were sitting there waiting because at the end of the day, they knew, midterm elections coming up. And then we know the people ain't going to like what Lincoln's doing by fragmenting the Union over slavery. I'm just making my point here. And they were relying on the Northern Democrats to get more power, more political power, so that way they can preserve and institutionalize slavery, right? And historians, and this is the point that Dinesh makes about the progressive historians, they try to explain this away by saying, oh, they were waiting for British and the French to come and interfere, which is unrealistic in the 1800s. Like, how fast you think it is going to take from sea to bring an army over there to help you win in a civil war? See, the prospects is not likely. But I digress. Let's continue.
Well, there isn't. The evidence is clear and overwhelming. Slavery was, by a wide margin, the single most important cause of the Civil War for both sides. Before the presidential election of 1860, a South Carolina newspaper warned that the issue before the country was the extinction of slavery and called on all.
And I don't get why people still fight this point, right? Like there's still people out here who are, I mean, you can make the argument because at the end of the day, history is about perspective at this point, right? It's open to interpretation, right? Lincoln never, fully stated that he did the Civil War for slavery, but I also have a counter argument for that too. But I think I'll do that further into the video. But I just want to bring out that point that even during the time, he points to a newspaper at the time of the election that was happening in 1858. That, hey, this is the issue. This is about slavery. And then it was a call to action. And then when the Confederacy broke from the Union, for what reason? Slavery. But people will still try to fight. Oh, Civil War wasn't about slavery. In what context are you saying that? I don't understand. But hey, but I digress,
All who were not prepared to surrender the institution to act. Shortly after Abraham Lincoln's victory, they did. The secession documents of every Southern state made clear, crystal clear, that they were leaving the Union in order to protect their peculiar institution of slavery, a phrase that at the time meant the thing special to them. The vote to secede was 169-0 in South Carolina, 166-7 in Texas, 84-15 in Mississippi. In no Southern state was the vote close. Alexander Stephens of Georgia, the Confederacy's vice president, clearly articulated the views of the South in March 1861. Our new government, he said, was founded on slavery. Its foundations are laid. Its cornerstone rests upon the great truth that the Negro is not equal to the white man, that slavery, submission to the superior race, is his natural and normal condition.
And a part of me, I'm sorry. If you're a liberal, I'm sorry, but I generally think y'all still think this way. This is why I don't believe in the party switch, because you believe that America was founded on slavery, which it wasn't, right? You believe in the 1619 nonsense, right? You believe that black people are not equal for a variety of reasons. Through your deeds, not your words, through your deeds, you prove that this statement is true. You still believe in this statement, liberals, Democrats, y'all still believe in this statement. We have affirmative action, anyone? That's the perfect example. You believe, oh, they're inferior to us. Oh, they can't make it. Oh, there'll be less blacks and Latinos, and that's a bad thing. Oh, we need to discriminate for them. The white savior complex, like you liberals espouses this stuff. It's just y'all change your spots, right? Like, to me, you're still racist, but you change your spots, right? And this is why I don't think conservatives are racist at all, because conservatives just treat you how you treat them. Because conservatives, like, end of the day, I'm not like most liberals. Most liberals are more likely to live in an echo chamber than conservatives, right? We have mainstream media beating your views down our neck. We go to work. Majority of you are in there, right? We're always exposed to your ideology. And if we ever express ours, we always feel like we're at a threat to lose our job. Even me, as a black man, I don't feel like I can feel comfortable expressing my views during work. And at the end of the day, I'm like, yo, I'm working. Like I like to compartmentalize things. Hey, I'm at work. Like, work shouldn't be political. So I don't wear my politics on a sleeve. But, I have liberal coworkers that do. I know liberals are very outspoken about what they believe. And I don't know if conservatives should start taking that messaging on. But whenever I see a conservative start taking on messages, like in my suburban area here, we have Trump supporters. I have a Trump supporter guy somewhere around here. He has his the label on there. And I'm like, damn, people damaged this car. I was like, yo, why they damage this car? Like, this is the stuff that conservatives deal with. A liberal can have their Black Lives Matter thing. Nothing happens to them. The minute you put an American flag or you put your little Trump sticker on your bumper, oh, someone scratched it off. Oh, someone did something to your car. But political violence is coming from the right. Oh, okay, bro. That's not been my experience. But yeah, I digress. I'm rambling too long. Let's get back into the video.
Yet despite the evidence, many continue to argue that other factors superseded slavery as the cause of the Civil War. Some argue that the South only wanted to protect states' rights.
Lies.
But this raises an obvious question. The states' rights to what? Wasn't it to maintain and spread slavery?
And this is what I'm talking about. Like, histrionics started to become about perspective, because people would be like, oh, no, it wasn't about slavery. It was about state rights. Lincoln was trying to tell everyone what to do, how to run state. He was trying to expand government, right? And this is the kind of the arguments progressives use to kind of try to claim that Abraham Lincoln was really a progressive. And I go, no, he was, because at the end of the day, when you federal government has some value, right? It's the template. Hey, in an abstract way, you have to protect life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. He was trying to protect a people's liberty, which were the slaves. Hey, we're trying to make an abstract rule that all states must follow. That's the purpose of the federal government. The federal government's job is not to do the concrete specifics. I believe that's for the states to do, state government to do that. State government are like your governors, whatever. Their job is to implement specific policies. The federal government is only supposed to give an abstract idea and foreign affairs, you get me, in a more scaled up level. Because the higher you go up, the less degree of separation you have, and you can't really tell. Like the federal government will take longer to act on an issue than the state government. That's my argument. But yeah, I digress. Let's get back into the video.
Moreover, states' rights was not an exclusive Southern issue. All the states, North and South, sought to protect their rights. Sometimes they petitioned the federal government. Sometimes they quarreled with each other. In fact, Mississippians complained that New York had too strong a concept of states' rights because it would not allow Delta planters to bring their slaves to Manhattan. The South was preoccupied with states' rights because it was preoccupied first and foremost with retaining slavery. Some argue that the cause of the war was economic. The North was industrial and the South agrarian.
And this is another point why I also point out how slavery didn't really help the South. South was poor economically. Like, if you look at even today, if you look at all the states that used to be slave states, they were poorer than states that were always free states. This is why slavery was a dying institution, and it was very feudal, like feudal lordish. Like when you went to the South was very rural, very poor, and a lot of economics and economists, and even Thomas Sowell made this argument that slavery kind of held back the Southern's economy. But people want to say, "Oh, my ancestors built this country." I'm like, well, the institution wasn't because at the end of the day, it's not a good incentive. Economics is about incentive. Government is about incentive. Because what? Incentives are based on one, human nature. Look. Like some people think I'm just be talking out of my butt, but like if you don't understand human nature, like if I don't understand my customer, how can I pitch to them? And this is the problem that socialists have. This is the problem with Democrats have. They don't understand human nature. They make solutions based on some imagination of human beings instead of looking at the reality of human beings. Hey, we think of ourselves first, and after we think about ourselves, we think about our family, then our friends, then there's a list of priorities. But liberals, Democrats, they think we all care about people at the same level and the same rate, Cap. But hey, I digress. I'm not trying to make long points.
So the two lived in such economically different societies that they could no longer stay together. Not true. In the middle of the 19th century, both North and South were agrarian societies. In fact, the North produced far more food crops than did the South. But Northern farmers had to pay their farmhands, who were free to come and go as they pleased, while
economics.
Southern plantation owners exploited slaves over whom they had total control. And it wasn't just plantation owners who supported slavery. The slave society was embraced by all classes in the South. The rich had multiple motivations for wanting to maintain slavery, but so did the poor, non-slaveholding whites. The peculiar institution ensured that they did not fall to the bottom rung of the social ladder. That's why another argument that the Civil War couldn't have been about slavery because so few people owned slaves has little merit.
Oh, and this also hurts the little black community's little synopsis about slavery, that they want to complicit all white people history in slaves, when here people try to use the argument that so few people own slaves. Why would the few people, why would the many fight for the few? Essentially is the argument. Hey, if Civil War really was about slavery, why all these people who didn't own slaves are fighting in the war, dying in the war? More non-slave white people died in the war than slave-owning white people. That makes no sense. right? But then but then when black people want to argue about reparations, they'll use the fact, all white people are complicit in slavery, and all of them benefited from it, but only few people benefited from slavery. And you had to be rich. Like only the richest of the rich could own slaves, because it's expensive taking care of other people, especially if you have a whole field of them. But, hey, that's pretty much a business, except you don't have to pay them. That's socialism for you. Look, I make the argument that socialism is slavery. Like look at it. Look at socialism. Oh, we'll feed you, clothe you. You don't have nothing to worry about. The government's going to take care of you, just like slavery. Oh, master's going to take care of all the slaves from cradle to grave. All you have to do is work at master's behalf, according to what their needs, or each man according to their needs. I forget. I always forget that saying. Maybe someone could put it in the comment section. But you work when you need to, then you have a bed. If you get sick, master got to take care of you, right? This is one of the reasons some people will argue that some slaves wanted to stay slaves because they didn't want to take on the burden of freedom. Oh, damn, now I got to find out a job. Now I don't, like, no one's behind me telling me what to do. Now I got to find a way to have housing for myself, take care of my health care, how am I make an income to raise my family, right? Those are some of the considerations of why some slaves wanted to stay slaves, and some slaves will be like, "Oh, you stupid for trying to be free, Kenny." Like when the field slaves will be like, "I'm tired of being whipped or forced to work on labor that I won't benefit from. I'm a leave and run away." People will be like, "Oh, you stupid. You have it good here." No one can tell me that's not welfare. This is why I said the Democrats are still the party of plantation politics. They still want you dependent on them. But hey, I digress. But they want to call black conservatives coons. When if you're a black Democrat, essentially, you're for your people being enslaved to your party. Dependent. If you're dependent, like to me, if you're dependent on them, they have authority over you. If you have no responsibility, you have no authority. So the Democrats are responsible for your healthcare, for your housing, for your groceries with the EBT cards. How are you not a slave? Only in now the plantation's bigger. Now you got a city as your plantation, but the concept is still the same. But people argue with me that socialism isn't slavery. It is slavery. And you even had a socialist at the time of this stuff going on who argued that white people should be slaves too because the blacks got it so good. But hey, I digress.
Finally, many have argued that President Abraham Lincoln fought the war to keep the Union together, not to end slavery. That was true at the outset of the war, but he did so with the clear knowledge that keeping the Union together meant either spreading slavery to all the states, an unacceptable solution, or vanquishing it altogether. In a famous campaign speech in 1858, Lincoln said, "A house divided against itself cannot stand." What was it that divided the country? It was slavery and only slavery.
And here's the point I want to make reference to with Dinesh's book here, is that there was a divide in the Northern Democratic Party when the Civil War was going on, right, in the 1860s. And also, by his actions, you can tell that he really was using the Civil War to end slavery because there was so many compromises that came to Lincoln's desk. Even Republicans were pressuring Lincoln, compromise. He was like, "No, I'm not compromising because of this." He always found a reason to avoid the compromise. And one of the statements a lot of people like to use was when Lincoln sent his famous letter to Horace Glenlee, I believe I said his name right, wrote that my prominent object in this struggle is to save the Union, and is not to either save or destroy slavery. If I could save the Union without freeing any slave, I would do it. If I could save it by freeing all the slaves, I would do it. Right? He admitted, hey, look, if I can get my outcome and do the Union, I'm doing that. That's the option I'm going for. He admitted it in his speech, but people will use it like, oh, like he's just saying, like, no, he actually meant this stuff, because you just look at his actions, because he's practicing what most politicians do today: public policy, and in the shadows, you work in your private policy. No one can deny politicians don't do that. So for me to make the same reference that Abraham Lincoln was doing the same thing, for some reason it's unthinkable, because you want to protect your narrative that the Civil War wasn't about slavery. But hey, I digress, right? If I could save it all by freeing some and leaving others alone, I will also do that. Lincoln framed the war as a war over the Union rather than a war over slavery, in part to keep the alliance of the war Democrats. So the Northern Democrats split into two different fractions in the Democratic Party. They were called the Peace Democrats and the War Democrats. The Peace Democrats wanted to prevent, I believe, slavery from being abolished. The War Democrats wanted to keep the Union. They saw the separation of the Union as unconstitutional, and the reason why they saw it as unconstitutional is because, end of the day, Lincoln won the election, and Lincoln's agenda was it had something to do with slavery. So who are you as the minority to question what the will of the people want? Hey, we voted for Lincoln. Yeah, they had 3 candidates to pick from. People gonna use the fact that, oh, the vote was split between the Democratic Party. That's the only reason Lincoln won. Well, it don't matter. The American people had 3 choices to pick, and Lincoln got most of the votes. So Lincoln won. And Lincoln's entitled to pursue his agenda. And because he's trying to pursue his agenda that the American people elected, the Southern Democrats wanted to secede from the Union. Does that sound constitutional? Does that sound fair? And this is the argument the War Democrats had against the South. And Lincoln wanted to preserve that. Hey, I don't want them to side with the Confederacy, so I'm going to frame the war as, hey, I am fighting for, because end of the day, Lincoln had competing priorities. And to me, Lincoln was one of the most pragmatic politicians of our time. He had ideals. And I think politicians need to get back to how Lincoln was. You have ideals, but you understand that, hey, you're a politician and you have to be pragmatic, and you have to understand that you have competing priorities. And I think we lost that in our culture today. All right. Well, that's some of my thoughts. Hey, I hope you guys enjoyed the video. I didn't want to watch throughout the whole thing. I kind of just wanted to make my point about the Civil War, maybe about slavery. But hey, let me know your thoughts. Let me know what you're thinking. You agree, disagree. I know this is a controversial issue, so a lot of people are gonna have a lot to say, and I'm here for it. I'm here to listen, hear, or learn as much as you guys are. Hope you guys enjoyed the video. I hope you spend Independence Day with your friends and loved ones, and I'll see you guys on the next video. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe if you haven't already, and I'll see you guys on the next one. Peace.